Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om Allah.
Welcome to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Currie is my name. And today we're speaking with Brother Doug Walsh, who's a Marist Brother, and he's the president of the St Vincent de Paul soup vans in Victoria, which is quite a big job, Doug. Last week you were telling us about your faith journey. How come you finished up with the soup vans? What was that transition?
It probably started as I was discerning with the religious order, what ministry would I do apart from teaching? Mm-hmm. And I actually was teaching and looking after the boarding house at Assumption College in Kilmore. Mm-hmm. And there was a group of Year 11 boarders who, during the day, I'd have them in religious education classes. But I really was going through the gospel with them and the stories of Christ looking after other people. But there was something, I said to myself, missing. So I said, I know how I'll attract them. I'll bring them down to the soup van. So I contacted the soup van people, and they said, look, you can bring a few of the boys down. So I took them out on the street one night, and they came back and a little bit quiet coming home on the bus. And I got back to the dormitory, and in boarding life you quieten them down a bit. And we used to have the radio on and a little bit of music, and I was about to turn the radio off when I heard this voice. And this young lad was speaking. He was actually on a phone in the dormitory speaking to somebody on the radio station about his experience with the soup van. How that he'd come from country Victoria, he'd never met these type of people before, and how really inspiring it was. And he understood for the first time what Brother Doug was talking about when we were studying the gospel. So that really stayed with me. Mm. So I continued that little program on, and so when I moved to Melbourne to work in education welfare through the Doxa School, I then myself volunteered to go out regularly on the soup van. And regular volunteers in the soup van normally at least give 12 months, and my night was Wednesday night. And so I went out there and I got to know the people on the street. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, it reminded me a little bit of meeting some guys who unfortunately were alcoholics, and I often reflected back on my own brother who died as an alcoholic, and I said, well, if I can somehow just have a relationship with them, listen to their stories, that would be worthwhile. And the other side of that is I started to be very impressed with the people who the soup van attracted, coming from different walks of life, very attractive, a lot of university students. And I suppose being a teacher, I often said to them, why are you doing this? And because of probably my training as a religious, I was picking up real vibes that they were coming from a spiritual direction, even though they may not have known it clearly. So I found myself as a mentor to a lot of young people on the soup van.
Right.
Yeah, as well as having that relationship with particular people that I would meet on the soup van each Wednesday night.
Okay. And that motivated you further, didn't it?
It did motivate me further, yeah. It motivated me further then that I became more involved in the organisation part of it. So I became president of the Fitzroy Soup Van,
Right.
which is our big soup van that runs through the CBD. And I really wanted to make sure that before people went out on the soup van, because the motivation of people coming on the soup van, in a sense, it's to serve the people on the street. But they soon learn, as I learned, it's building up a relationship with that. And so I wanted to sit down with our night leaders, and we have 7 night leaders on each of our vans. They're going out 7 nights a week, and people give up that 3 or 4 hours on a particular night. They join a particular night. Each night has its own way of doing things, but they become a very close team. But I wanted to make sure that they had time to relate to people on the street, because it's that whole relationship. Not only is it enriching, I think, for the people on the street, but it's very enriching for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. And to realise that these people are ordinary people.
Mm.
You know, something's happened, particularly university students, and they come out and they're doing a degree in science. And the guy on the street will say, "Why are you doing science?" And we've had occasions where this person will engage one of our volunteers in a very educated talk about science. And all of a sudden the young person says, "Hey, in a previous life, he what's happened?" And it's that whole, to me, it's that caring sort of thing, you know, that whole gospel message, you know, love yourself, but love your neighbour.
Yes, and a little bit of there, but for the grace of God, go I.
My
as well.
word, certainly, Norm. And that's what they realise, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So on a typical soup van, you've got the leader. How many other people would normally be?
To officially run the Fitzroy soup vans, we would need a team of 15.
Good heavens.
Yeah, because it's more than just serving food. Yeah. In fact, we do have an understanding on the soup van that if once the food, first of all, because the people miss out on things so much, and they are probably hungry, they rush for the food. Now, once they've got their food, they start to relax.
Right.
And I think they missed out on so much in life. I often think that's why they rush. There's plenty of food, but then they'll start and have a chat. Some nights they won't have a chat. Some nights they don't.
It's appropriate you raise the word rush, because we will have to take a break at the moment. We'll take a break now, but we'll be back. Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Currie is my name, and we're speaking with Brother Doug Walsh, who's a Marist Brother, President of the St Vincent de Paul soup vans in Victoria. Lots of people come to the vans. There must be a huge number of stories that you could tell about that. Could you bless us with some of those?
Yeah, there are certainly many stories, Norm, that people come. I think one of the, and when I tell the stories, we're very conscious in our work of the respecting the privacy of the individual. And so if I use names, I'll be just names that just come into my head now. I suppose I remember the night that we were asked by the society that the Governor General of Australia, Quentin Bryce, would like to come out and serve the people. And so we went through all the formalities back at, because I wanted her to come out, not so much as the Governor General, because our thing on the strip we use first names. And so I said, look, we'd like to do that. And I asked the people who were accompanying her, would they just stay a little bit in the background? And they said that. Naturally, I was aware that there needed to be security out with the Governor-General, and she was very charming, I must say. So we wear a red vest, which indicates to people who we are, and that anybody who comes on the van is a part of it. So we're walking towards the van, and most of us who are volunteers would have special people who would talk to us. And being a Collingwood supporter, I relate very well to the Collingwood supporters. So I'm walking down with the Governor-General, and this guy who wanted to tell me something about Collingwood was coming towards me, and I said, Bob, I've got a friend of mine here. And before I could say who it was, and we're going to keep all this quiet, he said, I know you. You're Quentin Bryce, the Governor-General. And I'm standing saying, oh my God, this is what it, and then she just smiled at him, and he said, I've seen you on TV. And then immediately he ignored her and said, hey, now back to the Magpies, what are we doing? And in this stage I just handed her over to serve. So one of the reasons I tell that story is that it's most important that if you have these people who wish to talk to you, that you've got to give them your full attention.
Yes.
You know, and so that was it. Probably another story is sometimes I bring out school groups, and I go and talk to school groups. They're normally social justice groups or some sort of Christian group. And I say, well, when you come down and visit on the soup van, if you're coming out to see my friends, I never use the term client, I want you to bring some gifts. Oh, what gifts do we bring? I said, well, maybe some toothpaste, maybe some soap, maybe some socks. Okay. So they come down, and we wait until the people are served, and they stand there, and I say, now you just tell the people that you're Mary and you've come from Warrnambool, and you've come just to see the workers of Vincent Paul, and you've got a little gift. And the people come along to them. This guy came along with this little girl Mary, and she said, what you'd like? I've got a cake of soap. And the guy looked at the soap and said, wow, I haven't had a cake of soap for 2 weeks. Well, he preached makes it her. Another guy came along, and he saw this pair of socks. Wow! And he looked at Johnny, another student from one of the country schools, and said, Johnny, do you think my feet are good enough to wear to have these socks on? And then they would start talking to the young people.
Yes.
Yeah. But just that sort of sense of probably humour, you know, that's something there, yeah.
And community.
And community.
Right. Yes.
And probably one of the stories that I do tell, and it's in many ways it's quite sad, but I think it's the important story to tell, is that occasionally we get to know these people very well, and we hadn't seen dear old Jim for a while. So Jim was living in a one-room boarding house, and we went along one night, and we knocked on the door, no answer. But a person next to, I had a university student with me next to me, said, Jim's not answering. And the guy said, we haven't seen him for a couple of days. So in that position, we, whether it's the City of Yarra, Brotherhood or St Lawrence, we normally said we better have a look in his room. So we found this poor old Jim dead, and Jim was a real character. Yes. He was an alcoholic. Everyone loved Jim. So what we do, if that happens, we put an ad in the papers across Australia, and just in case, we wait until the family. And a number of times the families actually haven't seen these guys. It's not that the families just don't know where these people are. And so we decided that Father Stan Lim, a great friend of mine, we decided that we'd bury Jim. So the people, we call ourselves the Vannies, who are on the van. We all came together in a little church at All Saints. We're not too sure what religious affiliation Jim had, but we have a nice little ceremony. And we're all in there, and there were the people from the street and ourselves, and Father Lim said, "Anybody got anything to say?" And lady stood up. "I want you to realise Jimmy was my boyfriend." Well, within minutes, we had 5 women. And they said, no, Jimmy's my boyfriend. So that was okay. So it was quite a humorous. We said our farewells to Jimmy, and we're coming out of the church, and this lady, beautifully dressed, stops me. She said, "I noticed that you seem to be a part of this. You're St Vincent de Paul." I said, "Yes, we are." She said, "I want to thank you for looking after my father, who you've just had a ceremony for."
Good heavens.
And I was just, it stayed with me. And I went outside, a couple of us with her, and we said, "Look, we're very sorry." And she said, "No, don't be sorry." She said, "I've just finished medicine.
Yes.
I noticed in this Queensland paper that this had to be Dad."
Right.
Now, then I said, "Well, look, you'd like to come back to his one room." And we went into the little room, and there was a photo of her when she was 10. And I've always said to young people going in, you don't know how much you remind these fellas of the family that may be too ashamed to go back to.
They left behind, yeah.
Left behind.
And we'll be left behind if we don't take a break.
Yeah.
So we'll take a break now, and we'll be back soon.
Mani Allah, Alleluia, Mani Allah.
Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Currie is my name. And we're speaking with Brother Doug Walsh. Now, Brother, you are this grand title of President of St Vincent de Paul Soup Vans in Victoria. What does that mean, and what do you do to earn that title?
Well, Norm, I don't really like titles, I suppose. In my work in the soup vans, I'm known as Dougie. Some of the people who work with me will probably say, "Oh, who's this Brother Doug Walsh, President of the Soup Vans?" But anyway, I was proud that the society, St Vincent de Paul Society, approached me and asked me, would I be president of the Soup Vans, because in St Vincent de Paul Society we have presidents of the conference, we have presidents of special work, etc. But one of the reasons, I suppose at 75, what do? Do you stay at home and maybe you write, other people would write books and so on? I just enjoy the company of young, committed people. Now, I treasure my relationship with the people that I meet that we serve, but the thing that I appreciate most of all is the people who come and volunteer on the soup van.
Right.
There is some, in my opinion, they enrich my faith journey.
Right.
They come from all different walks of life. They come from different, probably, religious traditions. But there is something about people who volunteer on the soup van that it is all about a relationship that they have with people.
Yeah.
And I think I keep doing the work I do, particularly with a couple of other people my age, is making certain that the vans are in good condition, because I basically believe that our people on the street need the best service we can give them.
Yeah.
And so therefore have that, and also to have everything during the day, have things ready so when the volunteers come in at night time, they can do that. And as well as that, I think it's very important to, I suppose I see myself as a mentor. If, and occasionally on the streets, things aren't as harmonious as they probably should be, that if there's any debriefing or anything like that, they've got somebody they can turn to. I keep my phone on, and I must say, can credit to my teams, it doesn't ring very often, but I keep my phone on until about 10:30 at night, just to make certain that people are okay. We have regular meetings. I have a wonderful, society has given me a wonderful full-time soup van coordinator who liaises with our head office, and people are very generous. I mean, it does financially, it does cost a lot for the soup vans to run.
Yes.
But I see, I suppose going back to early in my story when I talked about the young lad from Assumption I took down to the soup van.
Yes.
And he got on the phone to a radio station in Melbourne while I was trying to get him to bed, and just indicating that all of a sudden he understood what the gospel meant when Doug, in his RE lesson, was reading it through. Yeah, you know, that sort of, yeah.
Yes, great revelations. Just, do you keep statistics on the number of people you serve?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do what we call a count. You know, we would probably serve on the Fitzroy vans over 300 people each night.
Good heavens. We
would serve on the Collingwood van probably about 90 to 100. Collingwood Richmond, the Footscray Williamstown van probably another 100. And then 2 or 3 nights a week down in Berwick and Moe, we would probably see about another 80 people.
Oh, good heavens.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's quite a lot of, and some they'd be probably repeaters, would they? The same 300 basically?
Yeah, well, I think on our big vans you have the regulars, but you get a lot of people. Like, one of the things that impresses us is that you'll have somebody come along and they'll say, look, I'm on hard times at the moment, thanks for looking after us. And after a couple of months they'll come and say, hey, good news, Doug, I've got a job, or, you know, I can go back to the wife and family who I've been supporting by living rough myself. Yeah.
Right, and so what's the fare on a soup van? What do I expect if I come on?
Well, fortunately, if you come to our big soup vans, we're very fortunate that Tasty Trucks, which delivers lovely sandwiches and pies and so on, that very generously we take a vehicle out and we do a lot of we have some lovely sandwiches now, which is, in the old days we would have Vegemite and cheese, and we'd have ham and cheese. And we might have, and the weekends, of course, we get some lovely cakes donated to us.
Yes.
And also, because of Second Bite, another non-profit agency, we get a lot of things to make our soup. Our soup is actually made by soup makers. They volunteers that come in, and we have a lot of fruit. So it's quite a substantial, quite a substantial.
With a lot of support from
a lot of
other
support from
groups. Yes, that's quite amazing. So do you think it's a situation which is getting better, or actually we won't discuss that, because I think we're going to run out of time before.
Well, I think I'd say it's different.
It's too hard. Yeah. Brother Doug, thank you so much for coming in and speaking about this really, really important, heartfelt, centred activity of the soup vans for St Vincent de Paul. Thank you for watching Harmony and Diversity, and we'll see you next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allah.